Thank you. Yeah. Seven, 6, 0. All right. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. I recommend that minutes relating to the privacy of students and their records, approval of home instruction requests, and reinstatement of home instruction remain sealed.
So moved.
Second. Those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Is that big enough, Brian? Not yet. I'm almost there. I just want to make sure it's ready for you. I recommend that minutes pertaining to collective bargaining, NEA, ESP, unions requests to negotiate any NEA, ESP's union proposal for a one-year rollover remain sealed until such time as an agreement has been reached.
So moved.
Second. Those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Oh, and Pat, you're abstaining.
Yep.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Did you abstain from the first vote too, and I missed it?
I think I raised my hand, but
Okay. All right.
I recommend that minutes pertaining to collective bargaining, NEA certified staff's union request to negotiate remain sealed until such time as an agreement has been reached.
So moved.
Second. Those in favor? And those abstaining. Thank you.
I recommend that minutes pertaining to pending litigation, CA 124, CV 00282, MSM-LDA-S.V and D.V as parents and next friends of K.V, a minor versus Charahoe Regional School District, et al. Remain sealed.
So moved.
Second. Those in favor? And those abstaining. Thank you.
I recommend that minutes pertaining to legal update, CA number PC 2019-108870, Town of Barrington, et al. Versus Barrington School Committee, et al. Remain sealed.
So moved.
Second. Those in favor? And those abstaining. Thank you.
I recommend that minutes relating to the privacy of students and their records, appeal of decision to deny student transportation on multiple buses remain sealed.
So moved.
Second. Those in favor? And abstaining? Thank you.
I recommend that minutes pertaining to the privacy of students and their records, appeal of denial of parent requests for a student to pursue an alternative learning plan for GED remain sealed.
So moved.
Second. Those in favor? And those abstaining. Thank you.
There were 7 votes taken in executive session. The first was executive session minutes, 9/17/24. There were a total of 10 votes, 10 in favor, with Chambers, Chapman, Colasante, Giusti, Hopkins, Luzon, Lyle, Phelps, Purcell, and Reynolds in favor. Vote 2 is executive session minutes rescinding homeschool request of 9/17. There were 10 in favor, with Chambers, Chapman, Colasante, Giusti, Hopkins, Luzon, Lyle, Phelps, Purcell, and Reynolds in favor. 3 was homeschool requests with 10 in favor with Chambers, Chapman, Colasante, Juicy, Hopkins, Luzon, Lyle, Phelps, Purcell, and Reynolds in favor. Fourth vote was the ESP request for a rollover. There were 10 in favor. There were 10 votes, 7 in favor, 3 opposed, with Chambers, Chapman, Juicy, Luzon, Lyle, Purcell, and Reynolds in favor, and Hopkins, Colasante, and Phelps opposed. The appeal for transportation request, there were 10 votes, 3 in favor and 7 opposed. 3 in favor were Hopkins, Chapman, and Purcell in favor, and opposed were Chambers, Colasante, Juicy, Luzon, Lyle, Phelps, and Reynolds. Appeal for parent request for ALP, 6 in favor and 3 opposed, with Chambers, Chapman, Colasante, Hopkins, Purcell, and Reynolds in favor, 3 opposed, with Juicy, Luzon, and Lyle opposed, and 1 abstained, Mr. Phelps. And then it was a unanimous vote to return to open session with Chambers, Chapman, Colasante, Juicy, Hopkins, Luzon, Lyle, Phelps, Purcell, and Reynolds.
Thank you.
What?
There we go, thank you. Recognitions, okay. Please join me in congratulating and thanking the following. Grade 8 student Merit Analogy won the individual title at the Southern Division Middle School Championships last week at the Manhattan College Invitational at Van Cortlandt Park. She finished first out of 156 competing runners. Claire Toscano, grade 8, finished 9th overall, and Briar Cockshell, grade 7, placed 27th. Aaliyah Grant, grade 9, finished 23rd overall in the sophomore race over 2.5 miles. Congratulations to all. Charahoe was noted as among the top 5 districts in the state for improving reading proficiency for students who are economically disadvantaged. Thanks to our dedicated staff for making this achievement possible. And I see sitting in the front row is our new principal, Amanda LeClaire. I am excited to welcome Amanda as the new principal of Ashaway Elementary School. With a wealth of experience in educational leadership and a deep passion for fostering student growth, Amanda is a tremendous addition to our district community. Ms. LeClaire most recently held an administrative position in West Warwick before transitioning into the administration here in Charahoe. She was also an elementary educator in New London, Connecticut, and Exeter, West Greenwich, teaching 2nd and 3rd grade. Her experience both in the classroom and in an administrative role has given her valuable insight into the challenges and rewards of elementary education, and she remains deeply committed to fostering a positive learning environment where every student can thrive. Ms. LeClaire's focus on collaboration and her extensive leadership experience make her an ideal fit for Ashaway Elementary School. Please join me in welcoming Amanda to the Charahoe family. We look forward to the many positive contributions she will bring to our school and our community. I want to thank you, Amanda.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be the principal of Ashaway. It's been awesome getting to know students and staff.
Thank you.
Getting to know students and staff and beginning to settle in. I will be supporting the school and continuing rigor and excellence as Ashaway's done a wonderful job at already. So thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.
Can you introduce,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
assuming this is your family?
This is Juliet, my 5-year-old. This is Charlotte. We call her Charlie.
Sure.
And this is my husband, Chris.
Nice.
Thank you all for attending. And thank you for sharing her with us. I also want to welcome Angela Brazil, our new executive assistant to the superintendent and district clerk. We are thrilled to welcome Angela to our team. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from Southern New Hampshire University with a concentration in human resources and organizational leadership. She brings a wealth of experience from her lifespan and Rhode Island School District roles. With her strong background in executive support and project management and a keen understanding of quality and safety initiatives, Angela's expertise and dedication will be invaluable. We are excited to see her contribute to our organizational success. Welcome, Angela.
Right.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I know there's nothing else on the agenda where I can slide this in and say it except for now,
Okay.
but I'd like to at least acknowledge the fact that this is your last meeting. And personally, I think you've done a great job. I remember when you were the liaison, and this is it.
This is it.
Well, that's,
They certified the votes in time.
yeah, and I don't know,
Yeah,
it's a
you might have
presidential
to- you
election.
might have
I
one
don't
more.
know, I think you need to hold your breath.
I'm assuming it's your last meeting. So I just want to say, oh, votes the 5th and next meeting's the 19th of November.
I think she's hoping it's her last.
So public forum, this is where members of the community can come and speak on things not on the agenda. Brian, it's on the agenda, so we're gonna wait for you. So first we have Kellyanne Ward and Bailey Miller.
Hi, I'm Kelly Lynn Ward, and this is my daughter Bailey Miller. And we're here just to bring recognition and speak a little bit to, this is October and it's Dyslexia Awareness Month. And this proud girl has dyslexia, as her shirt says. So we wanted to come and speak and say good evening to all, because we want to really bring attention to dyslexia. So I am the proud parent of this wonderful 5th grader. That 1 in 5 people have dyslexia. That means out of the 845 students in the middle school, 169 of them will have it. Out of the 1,043 in the high school, that means 208 of them have it. And out of the US population of 335 million people, that's 67 million people in the US have dyslexia. So one of the reasons we want to bring attention to this as October is Dyslexia Awareness is you were talking about budget, right? And so what do we know? Like children with learning differences cost the district more. Well, I want to introduce you to this amazing little girl who has it. And with early intervention, that how children and adults with dyslexia can succeed. So dyslexia is something you are born with, right? You're created in the womb with it. Your brain is wired that way. You do not develop it. You do not cure it. You do not outgrow it. You are born with or without it. And there's a huge genetic component. My husband has it. My father-in-law has it. My mother has it. She has it. Her brother does not, though. So there are many different levels of severity, and regardless of the severity, people with dyslexia have high intelligence, are extremely empathetic and creative. And that early intervention, we know, is absolutely required to prevent frustration and mental health issues. So typically, intervention usually didn't start until 3rd grade, but what we know about that is the neural pathways have hardened at that point. And so trying to rewire the brain to teach them isn't going to work. And you're going to have more children who need increased intervention, increased frustration, increased mental health issues, and dropping out of school. So we want to start, and the gap, of course, the learning gap becomes larger. And then their desire to learn is much less. Thanks to the Rhode Island chapter of Decoding Dyslexia, the Right to Read Act was passed, and only the Science of Reading and Structured Literacy, which is phonics-based, should be implemented to teach all people how to read. We know this, that is how all humans should be taught, but especially those with dyslexia. She started school prior to the Right to Read Act, and her kindergarten year was COVID year, so that was fun. But she was diagnosed in 1st grade, and an IEP was put into place in the February. She was below grade level in all subjects and struggling across the board in all content areas. Thanks to her amazing grit and determination, because this girl works hard, let me tell you. And she had the most amazing teachers at Richmond Elementary School. Like, I get choked up, like, they were amazing. That in a mere 3 years, she was off an IEP, down to a simple 504 of minimal intervention, and she was at or above grade level. She was at a 6th grade reading level at the end of 4th grade and comprehension level, and she's at an advanced math level. She's in Math Olympiad now in middle school. She is also on student council. So here you have a child who in 1st grade was at a preschool reading level, who is now all advanced and out. And so in 3 short years, right, all the money people complain about going to special services, she's not taking them anymore. So this is part of it. Her self-esteem, in 2nd grade, she taught her class what dyslexia was, right? And so because of the early intervention, she is successful and the district is successful, and you're benefiting from how well she's doing. So I want to say that dyslexia is not just about flipping letters. It's about how the brain receives and processes information and how our English language is not intuitive. They can't hear sounds. Letters and words don't make sense. For example, sight words, like the word the, like if you asked her when she was younger, she's like, but e, like it doesn't make sense, right? This is not, again, an intelligence issue. It is a processing issue. It's how and what we need to do to unlock the brain. So I always say, right, like ask Bill Gates, Orlando Bloom, Robin Williams, Albert Einstein, Henry Winkler, Keira Knightley, or Steven Spielberg, and they all have dyslexia. Look at how successful they are. So in honor of dyslexia awareness, we are taking back the color red, because the color red is what people always use to correct things, to mark things wrong. And those with dyslexia have taken back that color to show how empowered they are. So again, we just want to bring awareness, like a lot of schools do things, but just to show the success of early intervention and what it can do for people. So I don't know, do you want to say anything? Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
We have Jasmine Roy from Hopkinton.
Good evening. My name is Jasmine Roy from Hopkinton, Rhode Island. I'm also the vice chair of the Washington County chapter of Moms for Liberty. I would like to start by saying that that was a lovely story, and congratulations to that young lady for overcoming dyslexia. However, in the 24 years, it is showing here from a report that our RICAS scores have not changed much at all. And that is worrisome. Fortunately, that little girl was able to overcome and succeed. My son, however, came home with a health class word search, and he knew how to spell anxiety for sure. However, his other spelling errors were not corrected. That's disappointing. It says here in 2023, Charahoe was 46.1%, and in 24, it's 45.7% in ALA. That's disappointing. In math, in 2023, we were 46.9. We went up, yay, 47.3. Yeah, that's it. So my concern here is that on a statewide average, our students are proficient, and it says here 32.9% in 2024. Why is this happening? This is not an attack on the teachers. This is from the top down. This is Infante Green, Rye, our superintendent, our school committee. All of you here are for oversight and to plan things for our children and to protect their education, to make sure they get the best of education. So this is not an attack. This is just to make things aware. People are upset about the yonder pouches. To tell you the truth, you know, this means more to me than locking up a child's phone. I want to see these scores higher. We are one of the highest states that pay the highest taxes for schools. Why are these numbers not higher? And you can't blame it on COVID, because COVID was 4 years ago. You can't blame it on absenteeism. You can't blame it on, it falls directly on the administrators. It really does. And, you know, I'm not in charge, but if I was, I would call for Infante Green's resignation and also yours, Gina. Thank you.
We will have a presentation of our RICAS scores next month as they were released on Friday. It's unfortunate that what you heard was a very small information because as you know, not all our students take the state assessment. They start in grade 3. And I noticed that you left out high school performance as well. So our teachers work really hard and so do our administrators. So this isn't about me, but when you come up here and talk about our kids like they're just a data point, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. That's not true. I understand the law, but thank you for telling me the law. OMA, excuse me. I am explaining to the public that you will receive the RICAS score report out in November. I can respond during meeting. If anyone would like to find out how that works, it's on the Secretary of State's website. So please know that our students' scores are important, but they are more than just scores. And we are seeing improvements and progress every single day. And I am very proud of our educators, of our students, and all of our administrators, that the work that they put in to ensure that we make sure every child is growing and successful. And I'm glad we heard the story at the beginning because that's one of many. So thank you to our educators.
Thank you. New business.
So first up, we have the Town of Hopkinton's proposal for the 1904 building site plan. Town Manager Brian Rossa, and I believe he's here with a few town councilors from Hopkinton, will be in attendance. I have posted, Brian has asked me to post his site plan, is that correct, Joe?
Yes.
The proposal that they are considering.
Sure, yes. And I want to start off by saying thank you to the school committee for giving us an opportunity and putting us on the agenda. Thank you, Superintendent Picard, for giving us an opportunity to speak here.
We're not muscling in, we're just giving a little support, a little sense.
So I thought I'd start off by doing an overview of why we're here and how we got here. So, you know, high level. So I know you guys got a busy night on your agenda, so I'll make it as quick as possible. So in 2004, the building was decommissioned. You know, don't quote me on these dates. It's, again, high level. No longer put in use. From 2004 to 2018, feasibility studies were done by the town. The town explored many options for the building. The town continued to pay the electric bills, maintenance bills, including the installation of a fire alarm. We explored many options. The close proximity to the existing elementary school was always a priority. The kid safety was always a priority. So commercial buildings, you know, affordable housing, those things were never really brought to the table because we knew that that was just not feasible given the close proximity to the current elementary school. So after a lot of subcommittees, first responders, including the fire chief, police chief, residents, they continue to express concerns about the safety of the building, fire hazard, you know, various concerns from police and fire that of the safety of the students. So in 2018, the council, after exploring many avenues, decided that tearing down the building was inevitable and that was the best option. In June 2022, a letter from Superintendent Picard and the school committee came to Hopkinton addressing the concerns of the building, urging the town to move forward with demoing the building. In March 2023, the town was awarded so I should mention, during that long period from when the council, the building was decommissioned, funding was always an issue, right, as it always is. You know, I don't need to tell you guys about that. We all know that we work in very tight budgets, and Hopkinton especially, we're always struggling with CIP budgets. So we attempted to incrementally fund it on a couple occasions, but prices were escalating faster than we could save money. So funding kind of always was eluding us there. In March of 2023, the town was awarded a $465,000 grant from Senator Reed's office to demolish the building. which had no tax dollars, no cost to the school, no cost to our taxpayers. So that was a real big win for the town and I believe the district as well. So it was a congressional direct spending through HUD. So the reason I mention that is because it's federal funds. So as I'm sure you're all familiar, whenever there's federal funds involved, there's a lot of red tape. The Historic Preservation Commission, the Rhode Island Historic Preservation Commission immediately got involved. We had to work with them in order to get the building down and not have to return the $465,000 and kind of walk away from the funding. We had to come to an MOA. We're pretty much pigeonholed, forced into an MOA, which had certain obligations that the town had to meet. Some of those obligations were pretty low-hanging fruit, you know, taking photos, aerial photos, drone shots. One of the requirements was to put up a memorial site and a placard for the 1901 building. Again, not really a huge lift when you're talking about $465,000 of funding with no tax dollars to match. So we complied. In May 9th, 2024, the town of Hopkinton awarded a contract to AA Wrecking to demo the building. In June 26th of 24, AA Wrecking was able to start the demolition project. And you know, obviously why. School was out, the 25th, I believe. So I guess what I'm getting here is, you know, August 27th was when they had to be off-site. So it was a very tight window, extremely tight window for the demolition of a building. And some of the things I think are worth mentioning was, again, within that tight window, we had to comply with HUD grant requirements. We had to do a full environmental review. That was actually done prior, but we had to comply with the findings of that environmental review. So the remediation of hazardous materials that were contained in the building, such as lead paint, asbestos, and so on. Lead paint soil testing by DEM before we could remove the soil. A lot of red tape. We had utilities shut off. We had to move existing gas lines. We had to work with DigSafe on the water and tank findings. DEM soil testing, they actually found that the oil tank had holes in it when they dug it up, so it was leaking into the soil. So we had to do a bunch of additional testing through DEM. Again, it was just stressful because of the time window, right? We wanted to make sure that we were out of there for August 27th so that it was safe and the children could be back at school and staff could return to work. So that was an unforeseen, you know, occurrence. We didn't know that there was going to be soil with oil contaminants. So again, just added to the process, more red tape. This led to, so all that to say that this tight window led us to putting down temporary millings and some temporary fencing on site, which I'm sure you're all aware of. Bringing in new loom and putting down soil would have required time-consuming testing. That soil has to be pre-tested by DEM. So our engineers thought that the safest approach would have been doing temporary millings so that we could get the school ready for kids to come back, right? That, again, I don't mean to be redundant, but that was always a priority. We wanted to make sure that we got them out of there. You know, I think I got quite a bit of gray hairs and during that month, just stressed out about the timeline. So that was always like a top priority. And, you know, I kudos to Sully, superintendent. I mean, we worked closely with staff to make sure that everybody was on the same page and there was no surprises. And there was a lot of moving pieces, so that was not an easy task. So I just wanted to say, the reason I'm here tonight is the previous council that voted to take the 1904 building down had expressed their hopes and desires to return the site back to the children of the district. They wanted to turn it into an outdoor recreation area and or some sort of outdoor reading area. So they wanted to put grass at the footprint of the 1904 building. And that's still the desire of the current council, is to have a green space for the children to utilize and also to have a memorial site for the building, again, going back to our requirements and obligations to the Historic Preservation Commission. So it was my hope that we could all come to an agreement and kind of find a win-win scenario where the town, the Hopkinton Town Council, and the Charter Hall School Committee could work together to establish a site plan that meets the needs of the school district and also accommodates the will of the town. So I've worked with Hoffman Engineering to draft up a proposal that I think could do just that. This proposal will drastically increase the number of parking spaces for the school, fix existing fences, and provide a green space, which will also improve the aesthetics of the Ashway campus. And I just wanted one other thing before we discuss the layout that I was proposing. I thought it was worth mentioning that, you know, the town, myself personally, put in, well, take me out of it, the town and town staff put in a tremendous amount of work, time and resources into making this happen in order to get that building down. Again, funding was not available, so we had to work with federal funds, which again was quite lengthy process. And in return, you know, again, no tax dollars, no cost to the district. We just ask in return that the school committee work with us to come up with a site that, again, can increase parking, but also accommodates the green space, which is the will of the council and our residents, with the desire that that green space could be used by the children. So with that being said, I wasn't sure how easy that would be to see, so I brought some hard copies just in case. I don't think I factored in how many people there were. So if you don't mind passing notes around.
I have it on my screen.
Yeah, we have it.
Oh, you do? Oh, excellent. You're a step ahead of me.
It's in the
Okay.
packet.
Okay.
But for the public, that,
But,
I apologize. And I also apologize about the public
maybe the public.
comment too. I wasn't sure how we were gonna run this, but, so I just wanted to show, where's my map? It's all right.
Oh, you want one back?
Yeah.
That's all right. Actually, yeah, if you. Okay, all right. So if you look at the map, it is a little hard to see, and I apologize, it's definitely up on the screen, but if you have it in front of you, currently we have the existing fence, and there's a temporary fence that runs from the top left of the picture, the tied-in proposed fencing, existing fencing, down to where, if you go down to the bottom part of the page, you can kind of see the black line. That's the existing fence that goes right up to where the old building was. So currently that fence is really out of place, right? So it's just awkward the way it's gonna just cut through that grass area. So with the remaining funds, what we were proposing is putting the fence where that red line would be. So a permanent fence that would come from the existing fence down, take a 90-degree over behind where the proposed green space would be, and take another 90-degree down almost to the road to connect to that fence, to kind of straighten it out and clean it up quite a bit, as opposed to having that awkward fence there. And then, you know, as you can see, on the right there, where the footprint used to be, along that new existing red line, that fence, we could put parking spots along both sides of that area. And again, along that 90 on the backside of where the building used to be. Again, we could work with the staff and work with our engineers to kind of come up with a little more detailed design, if that helps, just to make sure that things are compliant. You know,
so Brian, I had photos of the site, the whole thing, so that they could actually see like recently, last week, we took the pictures, so that those that haven't been on to the property
Sure.
can see what exists.
Sure.
But in photo format, like as Brian mentioned, you have the aerial view. So in the photos that we had taken, so you could see, it starts off with the playground area, where the current playground is, and then you can see where the cement is, that's where the buses come through. The next page shows you where the bell currently sits. Do you have do you need a copy?
Yes, that would be nice.
Actually, I can, oh, thank you. And I also have, I can put it on the screen in a moment after, I wanted the school committee to have a sense, just in case they haven't been able to see it. So that's where the bell sits on the second page, in that current area where Brian mentioned the fencing. And then the millings is that next photo at the top, so that's where these cars are parked. So that's where the millings went down. And then the next photo is the original, parking in the front that has always existed. And then when you flip that page, we tried to give you a larger view of where the bell currently sits in that grass area that's outlined here in front of the old 1904 building, along with the back parking that's currently there. And then at the very end, it's the large field in the back with the gazebo that was built by our fellow students. So I just wanted to make sure that you had photos of the current, of what was looking, so when Brian was making his presentation, you had a sense of the current grounds.
Okay, thanks. So, again, I just wanted to present this to you guys and get any feedback or questions, answer any questions.
Could you just give us a general idea where, you said there was an oil spill from an old tank?
Yeah, so the old oil tank, so just so you know, it's all been remediated.
Which is,
Yes.
but where would that be on?
That was, so if you look at the green space, it was on the backside of that. So the backside of the building where the new proposed parking could potentially be, along where that back fence would be, but on the backside of where the building used to be. So if you could see where the footprint comes out behind the green space, it's right there. So you can actually see where there's a little rectangle and then there's a little square that comes out where the cars are. That's where the tank was.
Okay. Oh. And there's no plume, there's nothing.
No, it was, we had to it was quite the process. We had to dig up we had to have the contractors go in. They had to dig up an excessive amount of oil and have it all tested. We had to leave the oil in containers on site. We couldn't remove it from site until the test results came back. And we had to dig down deep enough until there was no more traces of.
And did they recommend you put a hard surface over it to stop any water from?
No,
Okay.
So what was told to me, and again, I can't speak definitively on this, but the way it was explained to me was that the tank was drained when it was finally decommissioned, but there was some oil remaining, but a very insignificant amount.
Okay.
So there were traces, but it wasn't like the entire tank drained into the ground.
Okay.
It wasn't to that degree.
All right.
So whatever remnants was left in the tank, I think over time leached into the soil. But again, we were required to dig down by DEM until we found soil that had no traces, and then they brought in new loam to fill that in.
Thank you.
Yep.
I don't know who to ask this, but we have this opportunity to re-examine how the buses go in and out of Ashway School, pick up and drop off, as well as take into account where the leach field is, because I knew there was an existing problem with fire truck in the leach field, if I'm not mistaken. This might be the time, since you have all this open space, do we want to take the buses in this way and then redesign that pave area? Or do you want to keep it as simple as possible? Like,
Well, yes. So
you know what I'm saying? There's,
as far as doing a redesign like that, that would probably, well, let me start with saying that.
Brian's grant would allow for some green
Right.
and I believe a gazebo.
Right.
So we've had the conversation. I explained to Brian that without the elementary facility plan complete, I think it would be, we would be hard pressed to make any decisions over that area because God forbid we had to excavate it, then people who have had, some strong feelings about the area of the property would be concerned that we're now removing it. So one, we don't have an elementary facility plan, and I've had this conversation with Brian. So we don't know what the renovation would look like. We don't know. To Polly's point, RIDE has specific requirements when we do handle busing, or if we change the way it comes in, we have to have that reviewed. So my recommendation to Brian was to consider that front green space that already exists where the bell is and update it Or to the left, the students, we have been, unfortunately, been unable to update the playground area. So even putting the grass space, the bell, or the gazebo in that area would, I think, be in our best interest while we determine our next steps with the elementary facility planning.
What I would say is that we have the grant funding available, so why not use it, right? I mean, we
But
should
you
put
could
it,
use it in that area that already exists or in the playground.
right. So I would, suggest that we move forward with putting the proposal site together, knowing that we have the money, it's on the table, why give it back, right? So why wait for a what-if hypothetical? If that day comes, we can address it then. So if there's a day comes where the footprint for the new elementary school has to overlay that, this discussion's been had now. So we're aware that that is a possibility, and if the voters approve that, then we'll address the relocation of the site at that time. But again, why hold up a project and give funding back to to a grant when based on hypotheticals?
Why would you have to, I'm sorry. Why would you have to hold up? Couldn't we do the same thing forward?
Yeah, like, does the grant specify exactly where you need to put it? Is that in the grant, or is
No.
there some leeway? I think what you're trying to achieve is there's a lot of love and affection for the 1904 building in that area, right?
Correct.
So if we're gonna honor the 1904 building, is it okay to honor the 1904 building by upgrading the green spaces that we have? Like, does it have to be a whole new project where it used to be in the footprint? I guess that's my disconnect. Is that required in the grant?
Well, we're going back to the council that initially voted to approve the demolition of the building.
Yep.
And during those minutes, that discussion that was had back then, in order to get certain council members to vote to actually move forward with demoing the building, because as you're all aware, there's quite an attachment to the building by certain residents. In order to get it to move forward, there was discussions and approvals were made by the council at the time that the space would be returned back to the children. They didn't want to see the site that the building was on turned into parking. They wanted it to be a green space and given back to the children of the town. So that's why, and we hear it at our council meetings. We have people showing up in buses and that they want to see, the council members that were active at the time have, voiced their concern about not turning the footprint of it into a parking lot and to turn it back into a green space and give it back to the children.
That then we would have to maintain.
It's grass.
So
But
that has to get-
that's the disconnect, right? Is that we're going on the recommendation of a council that's no longer seated, that they want to see. I don't understand the attachment to the footprint of the 1904 building, so I'll be very honest. But I understand that there are a certain segment of the population in Hopkinton who does. But to me, that's the disconnect, is we're trying to find a way to use a space that is appropriate for the children who are using it now, who are at the school now. But you have an old council who wanted to see that space be a green space, and that's that's the carrot that got them to vote on doing this whole project.
Right. And I will say that the current council has the same sentiment. They want to see it returned to green space and not turned into a parking lot.
Okay.
And again, that's why I was kind of, maybe ignorantly optimistic, thinking that we could come up with a scenario where there was going to be plenty of parking, additional parking that didn't exist before, and also still be able to accommodate, the desires of the town residents and the council.
Yep, I've got Pat and I've got Jess. So Pat,
Was any of the materials salvageable from the old building? Like, for example, I remember probably over 30 years ago, they tore down a elementary school or high school in West Warwick, and they offered the opportunity for people that had attended that school to purchase bricks, and they got the brass and a plaque put on the bricks at a cost to the person that wanted it. Because there's such an attachment to a building like that, I was wondering if that was an opportunity that was given to them?
Yeah, there were bricks that were salvaged and given out to residents. There was an old weather vane that's going to be part of the memorial site. There was a couple things that were salvaged. We actually, going back several years, had a subcommittee that was put together that actually went out and tried to solicit people to come in to get some of the old wood that was used in the building. And it wasn't cost effective for no one wanted to come in and do it. When we talked to our contractors, we made them aware that some of the wood in the roof and attic area was, might have some value. So I think they were maybe able to salvage it and potentially work something off of one of our contract changes, but no one was interested in coming in. We did contact companies to come look at it, and we reached, I believe, I'd have to go back because it's before my time, but I recall them reaching out to companies all over New England to see if they would come look at the materials in there. So to answer your question, yeah, some things were salvaged and saved for the memorial site or for providing to residents that had an attachment, but nothing substantial as far as like the wood. Again, you got to remember that this place, the building, unfortunately, was filled with asbestos and lead paint. So, that's the other issue you're facing. Do you really want to start trying to go in there and pull stuff out? These guys had to go in with, hazmat suits to remediate some of those materials. So that caused obviously issues, but.
Mike, you had something to offer?
Yeah, just to pretty much bounce off what Brian was saying.
Go on up to the mic for me,
Yep.
please. Thank you.
Just to bounce off what Brian was saying, as far as, attachment to the building, right? We were able to salvage some of the bricks that were in good shape because, there was some of those bricks were made here were made in Ashaway. Don't forget, you've got 2, 3, almost 4 generations of people that went through that school. As some of you know, me and my wife run a farm stand, and there was a gentleman there. He was asking about it, and I said, "Hold on." I walked to the garage and gave him one of the bricks. 82 years old, started crying. He goes, "Oh, I remember the day I went there." So there is a big attachment to it. Some people might not get it, but I do understand of it. A lot of people went through that school, so that's where it comes from.
Okay. I think I had Jess and then Larry.
So I'm just looking for clarification on cars going in and out of the parking lot. So I went by today this morning and I saw the grass area. I have a question about that too, but is it a loop around? Do they go, or is that just all playground area over there?
On the left?
Yeah,
So
if I'm
when the
looking at-
cars come in, I'm just making, get your photo.
Screen?
Yeah.
Well, if you look, they go straight in.
Yeah,
So the cars come straight back, and then if you're dropping off, the drop off is in the back of the building by the gymnasium.
yeah,
And the buses go in the other side, which is on the left side of the grass area
okay,
in the front. And the buses loop around there and come out.
in that same little area,
Right by where you saw that basketball hoop area,
yeah,
you can see that the pavement's all broken, and we actually have a plow truck fall into the cement.
Yeah.
You see that,
right,
that's
I
where
think
the
that's what
asphalt
time
is.
is.
And we had some discussions with the previous principal one day on site about potentially changing the layout if there was something, again, looking for a win-win scenario. And he didn't seem too interested. He seemed to think that the current bus entry and exit was working, and if it was,
It
I mean,
has
I
to be,
don't-
Brian says it has to be separate from the drop. So
Yeah.
we can't have cars and buses in the same lane.
yeah, and I don't want to speak
Change
for
it,
anyone,
But
but
I'm wondering if this design is the best for that. And I'm curious about the fence. It says there's a fence, tying proposed fencing.
it's the red line, yes.
Okay. But so then you couldn't, but they don't loop anyways, you're saying they go around. They don't have, no one ever has to go through the spot that has a fence.
No, because you don't want them driving through the playground area.
We drew a yellow
Versus the
line for the
buses here
driving
in
lane,
the
so that
parking
if
lot.
you pull in, there's a yellow line. And then the parking, Jason Sullivan and his crew created the lines for the parking spaces that are now over the millings. So, I mean, you can see on the third, fourth page, it's already full, and that's just what we have right now.
Good.
Parking has been
It's doubled,
Long-
like the space is absolutely doubled, if not tripled.
so, the parking area is already
All that.
completely utilized. So my concern, I said to Brian, was that while they're willing to give us more, this is just with the school day. This is not open house, that in itself. So when the 1904 building came down, it allowed us the parking. But when we talk about green space, Ashway has beautiful green space all the way in the back. It has the green space in the front. Really what needs updating, my explanation to Brian was the playground area. It would be nice to sort of put something there to the left where you see all that dirt that really needs to be, that's what the school committee actually has prolonged because of budget cuts. Or that space that already exists.
Well,
Because
really,
adding
the
more
hang-up
space
is
in
that you
green.
want it on the site of the 1904 building.
And
Was the grass part of the 1904 building? Like the
no,
grass part in
so
front?
that gray area is the footprint of the
Right,
building.
but like
Yep.
the grass that exists where the bell is now, was
That's-
that
yes.
used when the old school, when the school was
Well,
previously
you could,
used
there
as
was kind of a
well, or-
fence kind of diagonally going through
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Sorry. You know,
Okay.
it's,
Be nice to make a walkway into the school that's rather than just parking lot into our school, so somebody can walk off the street, walk through this grassy area, go through another gate, because they'll be parking there, and into the elementary school. A nicer
I mean, we're
entrance.
willing to work with you guys, you know, if you're willing to work with us, I mean, we want to make, I mean, the aesthetics of the building, I mean, if
Yeah.
you want to drive up to an elementary school that's just parking lot versus having a nice green area, you know, it doesn't.
So I also have to
Doesn't
say,
seem
my
like a huge
concern is
ask.
that if we do an elementary facility plan, and I know that's future forward for you, Brian, even a renovation plan, if we have to dig up that site, now the council's not gonna be the one that gets the busload of people. It's gonna be the school committee that's now gonna have to talk to the residents of why they're now upgrading a site that was used for grant dollars. So I think it's a very slippery slope when we're putting grant dollars in a site that we can't even talk about yet. I have the septic to the left of that, which I've explained to Ms. Calasante, who was with me, that needs to be repaired. So I'm just cautious about adding areas
I
where
get
we
your
don't have.
concern, but again, that's down the road, right? So right now we have a
And now we put
temporary
our
fence, right, but we have a temporary fence up now and temporary millings down. How long are we gonna foot the bill on that? You know, so we're gonna sit there and just leave the temporary fence up for the remainder of the school year?
Just out of curiosity, how long has Crandall Field, how long has Crandall Field had the millings in the parking lot?
I don't know why.
Well, because it's the same thing,
Right,
right?
right.
So am I curious,
Yeah, but
how long
that's
is
not
it?
getting high traffic though. That's like their side parking lot that it barely gets used. That gets used during like special events, like a fireworks show. We're not getting daily traffic on that like this does.
Larry?
Completely different ballgame.
sorry.
You know, and again, it's kind of, all I'm saying is that the town kind of went out on a limb and did something that was beneficial for the kids of the district, improved the safety of the campus, and went out and did this. And I would hope that the school committee would consider that, that we could have left it there, done nothing. There would have continued to be this hazard there. Whenever what is done with the site is done, it would have been a cost to the district. So you guys would have had to foot the bill to demo that building. So the town did that, you know, so just something to consider.
Larry?
That, you know, no good
My
idea.
question is, where the Ashway School is now, and where the 1904 built is that two separate properties? No, or yes?
No, it's one property.
It's one
Yeah,
property?
Yep.
Okay. Because I was gonna say, if it's two different properties, school has nothing to say about it because they're not paying the $1 fee on it, but if it's one piece of property, then they.
Yeah, again, we want to work together on this, you know, we're not.
Catherine?
So you're posing the red line, excuse me one minute,
No, go ahead.
the red line, from that red line west, you want it to maintain it of the 904 building footprint, correct?
Well, you can see the gray area is the footprint, and the
Right.
green area would be the proposed green space, which would extend basically the current grass area would just get extended back, you know, I don't know the measurements, yeah, another,
Yeah, 20 feet or something.
yeah.
Wasn't much.
And then it gives again, opens up, it still allows that parking, and you get a permanent fence out there, which is
Right.
is better than no fence, right? Because
And it looks like they're gonna have plenty of additional parking the way you got it.
Right, right. And then, again, we have the funding to put in that permanent fence and fix the site now, so.
Catherine?
Okay, if there was to be in the future a renovation plan, would that negatively impact what you're gonna do? That there would probably be no undoing of what your plan is, right?
Yeah, it depends what the plan is, and again, we'd have to have a mutual understanding that if the day comes and the voters approve it, that's, the voters approve it, and we have to come up with a mutual agreement that if that's the case, then whatever is put on that site needs to be removed and relocated.
How about, septic issues that, Superintendent, mentioned? Would they still be able to be addressed?
That wouldn't come under our budget. I think that would.
No, I'm not talking about it coming from your budget, but what I'm thinking of is we don't wanna do something and then you're just digging it up. So basically, could we address septic issues that are a reality, in a way with working, say, with the town, so that we don't, even though it's grant money, you don't wanna waste it. So you wouldn't wanna do a project and then to address a septic issue that's a reality now that we just end up undoing.
Yeah,
I have a question about if the septic is not there now, why would it ever go over to?
so what, I guess we're not privy to like what the septic
So the
issue is.
septic is by the left of the playground. The problem is
Right.
that if we have to
Yeah.
fix the septic, we need an area for the buses to go. So we have to be able to reroute buses if, as we know, the septic is old at Ashway, it's the original. So that's my concern is that we're gonna be digging up something or rerouting buses in an area where we're putting down memorials.
So I'm not saying not to do it, but just have a conversation to
Sure.
figure it out.
I
That's
would,
all.
I would think that this would be helpful to get Sully's input on. Your maintenance director and our DPW.
Jason and I were, we both
And our-
agreed that the best scenario for the district was the area that the bell sits now, or the left where the playground is.
What if it's just some of the green space? Little extent, so it's not as much, but it still has something, because it seems like for them it's a non-negotiable. They want it on that site. And so what do we have to do to move forward? Does the school committee have to vote
The
on this?
school committee holds the lease, so the school committee has all the care and control, just like when the town called you and told you that they were no longer plowing because the Charahoe Act doesn't say that they have to plow, so that we have the fields and the grounds. You are responsible for everything that happens on that site at care and control. So they would need your permission to be able to do anything on this site.
Can you just tell us how big that green square area is?
I don't, I know, I don't, and I'm kicking myself for not,
Well, is there a key on here?
no, there's not, because this was, again, a proposed draft, so I apologize for not, if I had, I would say 50 by,
100 by 100?
yeah, or 50 by 50,
I would say
50 by 50.
yeah, 50 by 50 if I,
Yeah.
but don't quote me on that, I can find out and certainly email.
Was there any talk about having something permanently at like a town hall space so people, like, I know we've talked about the bell. Because I guess I'm thinking, if you want to memorialize the 1904 building, you put it where you're not gonna be making any changes to it, and it's a central place where all of Hopkinton could go if they wanted to think about it. Was that a consideration? And I'm not trying to be adversarial, I'm trying to find like,
Here's the thing, right? Okay, yeah, you go home, you go to your house, right? You don't go to somebody else's house. If we took that and put it up at town hall and say, feasibly or just hypothetically, we decided to redo town hall and move town hall somewhere else, you always want to go back to the original spot where the memorial was, where the building was, right?
okay, so you guys you're just committed to this spot. That's fine. I'm just trying to throw out different scenarios. Okay. So what are we looking to, does the committee have deeper questions about this? Because I think where we find ourselves now is, do we want to, what action are we looking for? Are you looking for us to vote and say, move forward with this? Okay. Hi, Laura?
Sorry, just one question. What's the input? You may have already said this. I'm sorry. There's a lot of information. What was the input from the school itself? You know, from the principals, from the teachers, the parents?
I mean, mostly we've been working through Gina, so, and Sully, working with them.
To be fair, Brian, that, our meetings just happened, we didn't discuss this even until September. Like, you had
Well-
told me that you weren't gonna even discuss this site until the building came down.
Yeah,
So,
well,
and
we
then I had said to you, Brian, this is, not my circus, this is gonna go to the school committee. I can't authorize anything.
We
And I
tried to
shared with
have
you my same-
discussions about this early on. We actually had a meeting on it with Gina and Sully early on in the process, but at that time, the bond vote was still out. So we didn't know the fate of the bond vote, so we said, okay, well, let's wait until that's determined before we, move forward with any sort of site plan.
That wasn't her question.
Because, I'm sorry,
That wasn't her question. She wanted to know if you got input from the Ashway school people.
well, I had conversations with the principal, at the time, only, on site briefly about the bus passage. So I apologize for not answering your question. But to answer your question, mostly I just worked through Gina. I didn't contact her staff, I didn't want to
Yeah, Mrs. Scanapico and Mr. Sullivan joined me at the meetings.
Okay.
And there was two.
Yes.
And so as far as because I mean, just from our perspective, if you're doing something that's for the kids and everybody within the town agrees that you want to move forward with this and it's going to be to the benefit of the kids, I'm just wondering what that feedback was that did in fact
The
come
only
from.
feedback we really got was from Gina, if to
Okay.
be honest, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So what happens if, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Craig.
Is there a sundown on the grant?
Yeah, what happens after next?
Yeah, I don't know definitively. I want to say we have until the end of 2025.
And are you penalized if hypothetically in the future, we have to invade that space for whatever purpose?
No, we would not be penalized. No. That's not an issue. I think what she's saying is that she would have to deal with pushback from residents.
No, I understand that. I'm just-
Definitely would be dealing with
Yeah.
pushback from,
Yeah,
the same pushback, I think.
Which, again, I think if there's a mutual understanding now, publicly, that if that's the case, if the voters approve to put a building there, that it's gonna have to be relocated. I think that's pretty
I
fair.
was implying more than anything.
No, not from like a grant
Encroaching
perspective.
onto
No, like there's no, provision saying that we have to maintain it for X amount of years or anything like that. The building, the funding was primarily to demo the building and restore the site. And then again, there was some stipulations about having a memorial. And a lot of that came through because of the federal funds and the Historic Preservation Commission.
Right, thank you.
Yep.
Karen?
Two quick questions, I hope.
Sure.
The grant funding, does it have to be spent or has to be
Obligated.
allocated by the end? But, okay, so.
I
that's
feel
fine.
terrible saying this, but I deal with so many.
That's fine.
I'm dealing with so many grants right now and funding that it's, I don't want to misspeak. But generally it's obligated, but I don't, again, I could email this information so I could give you a solid answer instead of, I don't want to misspeak, publicly.
Okay, then I'm gonna plead my own ignorance.
Sure.
When we refer to it as the 1904 building, is that when it was
Yes,
built?
yes, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks. I just,
So I think where we find ourselves as a committee is you have a few options. You can table this and hope for more information for a later date. If there are questions you don't feel that you have the answers to, you can table it and we can make a decision at another date, knowing that the funds are not gonna be running out, sounds like anytime soon. You could vote on this, and if you vote yes, then it sounds like the town we'll have to work with the district to make this green space and have a memorial. If you vote no, what happens if we vote no? Does nothing happen? I don't like, if we say no, we don't like your plan, do we revert to the superintendent's idea of a green space, memorializing it, but using it with I don't know, I guess that's where I'm stuck. I don't know, go ahead.
I think we should make a motion to table it. That way we can see where everything, where all the chips lie in a month or so. This is a great presentation, and it gives us a good idea of what you want to do, but it kind of seems like it's in your hands to do it with your property.
Well, they need our permission.
Yeah.
This is.
Well-
I understand that.
Committee's property.
I
Yeah, the
understand that.
catch-20, I mean,
I know.
the
Yeah.
crazy thing is if we had done it in the first place, it would have not been up to the school committee,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So now we're past that point because of the time constraints and again, restoring the site to being safe for when school was back in. We were kind of rushed with, and we didn't have time to really put the site the way we wanted it. So now
Yep.
here we are asking,
Secure it up.
we should,
Not
yeah.
that
I
spot.
have questions too, so I apologize. I keep jumping in. So Craig and then Jess and then me.
So, I understand your predicament, so I agree with tabling, but would you have any input on when you would like us to readdress it?
Yeah, well, the only problem is that the current situation is the town is still having to pay our contractor. We can't close out our contract with them because we're renting temporary fencing and I don't even want to tell you how much we're paying. It's
I
a
know,
lot,
I
it's a lot
understand.
more than you would ever think it was, let's put it that way. So I don't want to eat up our grant funding on temporary fencing when it's got to come down anyways. So if that's the case, we could just pull that and then you guys, I mean, if you're responsible for the site, if you want us to just pull the fencing and then you guys can deal with that, I don't know how you want to deal it. If it's going to be long-term, if it's short-term, we don't mind holding on to it and maintaining it until a set date. But yeah, I definitely don't want to just table this indefinitely and then the town continues.
Could you define your interpretation of what the difference between short-term and long-term is, please?
So right now, it's literally short-term fencing on blocks.
Right.
The contractors come in and they just take. It's all
Yep.
loose, not cemented in the ground. We're gonna put in a permanent, black,
I know, so would you want this
4
by the
foot.
new year? I mean, I want to get past November 5th.
I don't, again, maybe I'm speaking outside of my,
The sooner the possible, that's the council's, yeah, that's the council.
Yeah,
That's
I don't
what,
understand. I mean, we're gonna get into the snow time, and then we won't be able to do much of anything.
Yeah.
So,
You'd
I
be
mean, I
surprised
don't
what
understand
they
why you have to table it, but I think we have to answer your questions.
Yeah.
So
And
that,
I
I
think
thought
that's-
we had, but maybe we haven't.
I think that's where you're getting the tone of the committee. I'm reading it as they have questions, they want parental input potentially, like, could we ask Ashaway parents, it's just one school, what they're thinking? I know it seems like it's in the weeds, but I'm just trying to recap. it
What
for
are you
you.
gonna ask them?
I don't know, I'm not, that's not my, and we'd have to have that discussion. I've got Jessica and then I've got Pat.
So part of working together is patience and informing people. This is the first I've seen this.
Right.
When you told me that this grant was approved in 2023, I didn't know that there had been a grant approved after 20 years of the building being vacant and trying to find solutions. So a lot of this is new to me as a school committee member. It's the first time I'm seeing this. And I appreciate you making it very clear what your desires are. But I think it's fair to give us some more time to consider and also to give, Jason Sullivan, the folks at the school time to consider how much of the space would be, where the compromise can be. Because right now you're making a request and in order to compromise, we can't just vote yes or no. So I would appreciate patience and having time to make a decision and evaluate more.
Pat, and then Catherine, and then Larry.
Yeah, you mentioned, it seems like this hiccup is the screen space. When you mentioned it was the council that the previous, was it the previous town council?
Yes.
Couple town councils back.
Okay, so to me, that's just seems like what the only hiccup is in this whole proposal seems to be disagreement with this screen space. And I don't know how to get around that.
Sorry, Robert Burns, Hopkins Town Council. Originally, we were going for the entire footprint of the 1904 building. However, within conversations with the council, town manager, and Gina, I was on that meeting with you, we offered up a compromise to give you all the gray space and just take that little bit of green out of the center of the building. That was due to, if I'm correct, our time constraints for you to be able to open your school safely for our children that go there. However, this would have been bulldozed, that green space would have covered the entire footprint prior to you even opening the school. This would have already been done, but time constraints held us back. Your school is open, we're coming to you very politely and saying, look, we want to give you more parking. I had 2 daughters that went there. I know the constraints of the parking there. We're trying to give you more. The only thing we're asking is approval. Give us the square green and let us build a memorial for the school. That's all we're asking. And in the meantime, we're giving you all the other space. We're trying to compromise and show these people in these towns that town council members and school committee members can work together on something. Let's all step to the plate and agree that you get more of what you need, we get what we need. Let's show these voters that we can do this.
I appreciate that, but I think you feel like you're already compromising, but this is the first time all of us have seen this. So you've got 12 people who you feel like you've already made a compromise. We're just seeing all this information for the first time. So we're not trying, speaking for myself only, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to you and adversarial, but what we're trying to do is figure out what we want for the best for the kids that are there now. And I know you're coming from a place of feeling like you already made a compromise, but we haven't ever had this discussion. So that's kind of where we're coming at. Yes, Sharon.
In 2008, I think it was 2008, when the lease was redone and was decided that the 1904 building was no longer viable to be in use. And we rewrote the lease, and it's clearly says that the 1904 building is not considered, in a sense, part of the lease anymore, because you're not using it. You haven't used it since 2008. And Superintendent Ritchie was no longer interested in discussing that part of the bill, that footprint. Okay, and so to me, we really think that we've gone a long way to work with you guys and to, like these guys, I didn't go to Ashaway. I'm from Pittsburgh. You know, they really felt that they were going to have that whole footprint, since Mr. Ritchie was no longer interested in anything about it, and it was just sitting there. And all this time. And so we do feel that we've done a good thing by saying, okay, well, you can have more parking and we'll just have this little green space. And I don't know how else to tell you how much people feel that they have made a sacrifice.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, but it's, again, this is.
So I guess my question is, you know, what do you want to do with it? What do you have against what we want to do with it, I guess, is the question, because that's what you want to have some
I
kind
just want to, Sharon, and I appreciate everything, I mean, I appreciate what Bob said and what all of you have said. I think, and I had stated this to Brian, it feels like we're late to the conversation, right? Even I felt like late, and I expressed that to Brian. Like, it would have been nice at the very beginning that the school committee, for example, I remember, if those of you remember, Andrew McQuaid had said, you know, he wanted me to make sure that the town council knew when specific items were on the agenda after the whole plowing incident, because he felt like that would be a way to make sure that we were collaborating. And I think everyone here agreed that that was something that they wanted us to do. And I think to really show the collaboration, and I agree, if we're going to work together, and I think we all want to work together, it feels like we're coming at the end of a conversation instead of saying, hey, we're going to take down the 1904 building. We're going to have these planning sessions. We have minutes that we've had. Like, who knew about those meetings? And even it seems like even the Hopkinton residents were not privy, never necessarily, when they were school committee members. You weren't on the school committee.
They're public meetings.
Right, so school committee meetings.
But they're public meetings.
But the school committee was not asked to attend or
Doesn't
even
matter.
represent input.
I'm a Hopkinton resident, so it only has to do with Hopkinton.
I'm saying, so
really.
Sharon, what my point is that, I agree, I think we can come to a compromise. I wanna know the dimensions, Brian, now, because it is different than what you originally showed me. But I don't think necessarily, that I could say right now, based on the green space, but I do think a compromise is also thinking about fixing the green space in the areas where the kids may wanna have it, like the playground. I don't think there's only one way to compromise.
So I apologize. So I had Catherine, and then I saw Laura, and then I saw Larry, and then Polly. Who was first? Larry? Well, Larry's already spoken. Do you mind if Catherine goes first? Okay, go ahead.
All right, so to Gina's comment that we're late to the conversation, well, I still think let's answer Sharon's question, what do we want? Whether it's late or not, they're here tonight, what does the school committee want? What are our concerns? I think that if the school committee was to vote to table it, it would be very unfair to table it without saying, what are we tabling it to do? And to have a time constraint, that we're gonna work within a specific time frame, and that we're gonna say, all right, this is what we want for the town to provide for us, additional information, and get us that information. And once we have that information, we will act within a specific time frame, so that it's not just in limbo.
Thank you.
No, I think that's great. And Polly is the one who mentioned tabling it, but Laura, why don't you go next?
So I agree with what Catherine was saying, that, you know, I think that with there being an upcoming election, my fear is that it could get potentially put off another month. And I would personally, just being a new committee member, I would like to know the burden that that's going to be putting on the council, because we don't want to put any additional finances on you guys. And I know that sometimes the cost of those things can start to incur pretty quickly. So do you have that information? Is that something that you'd be able to provide for us? And we, you know, if we were given that information, would you be open to the idea of saying, we can provide all this information for you and the new committee members, depending on, you know, who they are. And then basically we could come back to you and say, we'll have a decision for you on X date. Would that be acceptable?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, so there was a few questions there. So as far as cost, so there's two costs here, right? There's actual hard costs, like what we're paying for the temporary fence on a monthly basis.
Yep.
We're continuing to incur that. There's also the political costs, right? There's residents that they have to answer phone calls and emails and, you know, public forums where, you know, we have residents that are upset. So they're getting all sorts of pushback. So if we just continue to kick this down the road, they're going to continue to have to deal with that. So when I tell you that, you know, there's a lot of people out there that are not happy that the building came down in the first place, and they're not going to go away. So the longer that we push this off, the longer they're going to have to deal with the upset residents, which we all know is not ideal timing, right, with the election. So so there is actual costs. You know, I want to say it's around $1,000 a month is what we're paying for the temporary fencing, which it seems pretty steep to me from our contractor. So I don't know, did I answer all? And as far as setting a future date, I think that seems like a reasonable.
Okay, and you're not, as far as when you get the approval process, your time frame, because with certain conditions, with what you would have to do with that space, obviously the construction and the installation of this area in particular is, you know, there's factors that go into it. You're obviously not going to be digging during the winter time. So
Right, absolutely. Weather, and also, again, safety of the children. You know, we're not
Right.
going to have backhoes on site when kids
Right,
are
when
at
kids
recess.
are
So,
around.
so that's obviously our number one priority, and has been, you know, that's why we're here today, because we took this building down with the students in mind. We wanted to ensure their safety, and it was brought to us from the school committee, you know, back in June of 22, that this was a concern of the school committee, that they wanted this building down. So they approached us. We continued to make efforts to accommodate. Obviously, funding was an issue until we got the grant. So, you know, we were continue to put our time and resources in to meet the needs of the school committee, or the ask of the school committee to take it down. So, you know, we applied for multiple grants. Finally, we were able to secure one, and, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay, thank you.
Larry?
Now, the area here, where is that encompassing this green portion right here too? Is that?
that's already grass.
Okay.
Yeah, so it would just
So,
be
are you
extending the
gonna
grass
paint-
area.
Where this red line is here, and this red line, you gotta put another fence down this side?
No,
and
you can
fence
see
that
the
whole
red-
thing in?
The red fence goes, it does 290s. So it
Right, but where it stops at the green space, the red line, at the north side, you gotta leave one side open, but fence in
Right, for
two
the
sides.
playground area. They were-
Three sides,
Yep.
okay.
So if we're gonna move.
So if we
oh,
do,
sorry, Larry.
that sounds like that's a good proposal. That's all fenced in. You get everything outside the red line.
Yeah, well, I
we
guess the
keep
whole,
everything
the whole
that's green
purpose of
now.
the fence is to separate, you know, the
Right.
playground area from the cars.
Right.
From the parking, so that,
Right.
you know, before the building was there, which separated, you know, the kids from running in to
Right.
where you know, staff and parents were pulling in parking. Now we would propose a 4-foot fence, you know.
Right.
Again, I think there's something to consider too about the aesthetics, you know, I don't want to sit here and act like a school committee member, but you should consider that. It's gonna look a lot better than just having millings. You know, you're gonna have a nice grass area with a brand new gazebo, or maybe we just extend the memorial to where the bell is currently. But you know,
Pat, so do you have a target date on when you want to get this done? Are you looking like at winter break or just so that we?
2 weeks.
Okay.
no, again, you know, we want to work with you. We just don't want to have this kicked down the road for no
No,
apparent reason, not make progress.
But I know they
So
want
as long as we're working together and we have a date set.
So when is the next meeting? When is your
So the next meeting. is-
November 19th.
Yeah.
That's a good.
So if we're gonna, just to be respectful of everybody, we've had a robust conversation
Of
about
course.
this. If
Yep.
we're gonna table it, then I would recommend, let's table it, because then we're going to have more conversations about it. If we vote to table it, though, what I'm gonna invite school committee members to do, if it is okay with you, is to email
Please
Mr.
do.
Rosso
Yep.
with your questions, so that way
Or
you're
call.
getting as much information as you can, so that you can in fact make a decision in November, so they can then in fact move on with.
Could also always come to a council meeting, 'cause I'm sure this will be a topic at the next one.
Yeah, and you guys are welcome to call me too, because sometimes emails just
Yeah, no, that's great.
too many. So
right, so do
sometimes
you-
the conversation goes a long way.
I just wanted to say something before I make any kind of motion. I think overall, it's imperative that we get this fence up for the kids. Get the fence up before, this is just how I feel, before the ground freezes. Because that temporary fence could be problematic. It's expensive. It looks terrible. But overall, the safety of the kids has to be number one. And if we just put this fence up and somewhere down the line, you have to move it or take a part down, so what? The kids are safe. We have an extension of grass. We got a nice safe fence and they're good back there. And I think that's all anybody wants to see out of this. It's just a nice green spot and this sturdy fence. So, I mean, I'm fine with it as it is, but if you guys want to table it for the next meeting, so you can go down there and take a look. I've driven by several times. I've taken all the kids because it looks so nice. I love the old building, but it looks gorgeous without it there. And we really have an opportunity to just make it look nice. How many times have you driven by and said, oh, if that building wasn't there, it would look so nice. We have that chance now. So,
Do we have a standing motion already?
No, there's no motion, so if there's a, nope, that was suggestion. So is there a motion to table, if people want to table, I don't need a motion to table.
I'll make a motion to table this agenda item until the next school committee meeting. And I will sum it up at the end of the meeting by requesting that be on the agenda.
Great. Is there a second?
Could, you're gonna have to tell me the procedure. Can I make an, addendum to that motion?
Need a second.
Let's second the motion first.
I
Okay.
second it.
Okay?
Mhm.
And then discussion on the motion is where you would make an amendment for the motion,
Thank you.
which is what, Catherine?
To take.
The amendment would be that the school committee, takes also the responsibility to ask the, town council questions promptly so that they have time to get us the answers for the next school committee meeting, and that we will give them an answer at the next school committee meeting.
I don't know that we need that as an amendment. I think
Like-
that's implied.
I think that I'd personally like to see it in there because we're making a commitment to them and there's no question. That's my opinion. I'd like that
Is there a second to
amendment.
Catherine's motion?
Sorry. Oh,
Someone second Catherine's
mind.
amendment. I'm sorry. I need a second to Catherine's amendment.
I don't think we need that.
So there is no second, so that amendment fails. I can't see any need for discussion any further on the motion, but is there any further discussion on the motion? If not, let's go ahead and vote. Those in favor? Tabling it for the next meeting. Okay, that was unanimous.
Thank you all for your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate all of you coming out.
Item B on the agenda is grants. The first grant is the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank Emerging Contaminants in Small or Disadvantaged Communities Grant Agreement. I am recommending approval of the grant agreement between the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank and the Charahoe Regional School District in the amount of $615,000 for the PFAS remediation work at Charlestown Elementary School.
Second.
Are there questions on the grant? Greg?
And this grant provides the proper equipment to get us below the forecasted federal requirements.
That's what they said.
Okay. That's the only question I got.
Catherine?
Yes. When I was reading it, I just had one concern with this verbiage. We know from meetings we've had with our attorney that just a few words can make a difference. I was concerned on page 2, if you look at the second paragraph where it says award funds authorized in this agreement shall be subject to the continued availability of funds. So is there any danger of us committing ourselves to a project and then they say, sorry, we don't have
Well, one, the
enough?
project has to get done because we're already out of compliance if we don't move forward. So this was a grant that the Rhode Island Department moved forward to provide us so that it wouldn't come out of taxpayer dollars. So by not putting this grant forward, you would place the burden on the taxpayers.
Okay, so basically, there's no choice. We have to do this, and so whether or not
This
they
gives
give
us
us
free
all
money
the
to do it.
right, whether or not they gave us all the money or not, it's still better.
Still more money than we had.
Got it. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, those in favor of the grant?
Sorry,
No, it's okay. Thank you. That is unanimous.
it's fine.
The next item is number 2 for grants, EPA's Health Communities Grant. Dr. Miller will review this grant request with you. If you have any questions, I recommend approval of the grant to the Environmental Protection Agency in the amount of $40,000 over a 2-year funding period, which is July 1, 2025 to June 30th, 2027, focusing on sustainable materials management. Is there any questions regarding
So
this?
moved.
Second.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, is this a piggyback to the grant they got back in June of 18th? Supporting community, agricultural and local education system grant that you got for $150,000. Is this a piggyback to that?
So what it'll do is it'll actually help us continue the work that started with Scales.
Yeah.
So we've been, we just went through the process of securing student interns, the composting that's taking place, even get the foam out, so that grant as well. We were transitioning to, disposable trays or the trays that we have to wash.
So this
It's
just
it's gonna help us extend it.
Okay.
Other questions? Okay, those in favor? It's also unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, so next item is in October, we always do the superintendent goals review. They are aligned to the district strategic plan, which have the specific metrics overall for the district, also taken out of our school improvement plans. And I recommend approval of my goals or any questions that you may have regarding them.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions for the superintendent on her goals?
Sorry, I did have a question on how is there like some sort of metrics that's done on how those are measured, or are they just
So
kind of, like,
there's a progress
listed?
indicator, but the district strategic plan that was approved a year ago, 2 years ago?
2023?
Is where the metrics lie. And then what we do based on the district strategic plan, the schools and myself create goals to be able to meet the needs of the Vision 2026.
Okay,
So all the metrics, if you go to they're all
All
spelled
through
out
that.
in the strategic plan.
Okay.
These are the sort of the action items to get us to that point.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gina, I'd love to see an action item under your first goal, which is an excellent goal, where we survey the teachers to solicit feedback for what they believe might be strategies that would support them in these goals in their classrooms.
So we do have survey them after every professional development and learning opportunity. And they all provide the survey works data that provides them specific insight into their own school and the district.
Okay, so just clarify something for me. So are you saying presently, like the school committee could have access to a survey that has already been done that would give us the information that I'm looking for, which is that the teachers have the opportunity to tell us what they believe are things that would help them to achieve these goals? Because ultimately, to improve in those areas is going to fall on the teachers in the classroom. So what I'm saying is to give the teachers the opportunity to answer a survey that the school committee would see that would tell them what they believe. You know, maybe they're not going to say they need, and I'm not saying this is it. I'm just using it as an example. Maybe they would say, no, it's not so much we need professional development, it's something else. Do you understand what I'm saying? So do you
My
already have
suggestion is
that data?
We have the survey works data, and we also have the professional development surveys that we give them. They'll be taking one again on October 24th for early release. If that information is not what you're looking for, my recommendation would be to put in front of the school committee a survey that you would want them to answer.
Right, so I'm saying that now, could we have a survey within this goal
That
under
would
the
be something, I
action?
think that's what, it wouldn't be one of my goals because I do that. So what I'm saying is, if the data I give you isn't what you're looking for, then you would want to recommend to me what survey to give them.
Okay,
So that would be future agenda item.
okay, all right, then I will put that for a future agenda.
Other questions on the goals? So, do you, we need a motion to submit the goals. Okay, do we have a motion on the floor?
Yeah, we did.
Right, any other questions? Those in favor? Oh, the superintendent's goals. Wait, did you get everybody? Did
Oh,
everyone
I'm
vote?
sorry.
No, what do you
Yeah.
got in favor?
I'll put two hands up. There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
All right,
Two.
I didn't get a,
It's unanimous.
did you answer?
Measure goals, okay. Go you.
So next steps as they relate to the phase out of Hope Valley, this agenda item was requested at the last meeting. This agenda item has been on the agenda so that we can continue to allow the school committee to have conversations as it relates to Hope Valley. So what we were asked to do is, and I have it up here for those of you that need it. Basically, just to remind everybody, the school committee for the last 20 plus years has had the conversation on Hope Valley. Over the last 5 years that I've been here, it started out when the first facilities plan came out. And then when we first talked about the Hope Valley closing and the budget passed with all three towns, it was halted. And then I was asked to wait for the following budget season. And as we all know, last year's budget season, we were concerned with increases. So you had asked me to now move forward with the phase out, not a closing at this point, but closure was on the table based on how the budget results came out for the vote. So basically, we continue to look at enrollment trends, operational costs, and sustainability concerns. We also know we're going to go through the pros and cons of an immediate closure versus a phased out closure grade by grade, which is what the two options have been that the school committee asked us to review. So over here, we have the pros. So we know that there, obviously, if you close Hope Valley Elementary School, there's an immediate cost savings, utilities, maintenance, custodial, transportation, and staff. Parents will be given a specific timeline, so therefore you alleviate uncertainty that they have been concerned about, not knowing what's happening, and going that year-to-year route. Students have the opportunity to meet more friends prior to entering middle school. It addresses the declining enrollment that we continue to talk about, and it may allow for us to be really utilize our staff in a more specialized way and more efficiently. The cons is that it's disruptive to students, and they're separated from their current peers and their location. It's disruptive for our parents and staff. There's new logistics, there's school changes, there's concerns for loss of identity and traditions. And the infrastructure adjustments that would have to take on, as we all know, we have aging elementary facilities. So now we're placing more students, even though our buildings are under enrolled, in old facilities that would need to be upgraded. And as you all know, preschool comes with very specific requirements at the state. So we would have to make sure that we have, that we meet those requirements. Provides academic and maintenance of effort. As you all know, we are required to make sure that 3% of our operating budget is to maintain and renovate our buildings. And with that being said, if you phase out Hope Valley, the pros would be minimize those disruptions, and it allows parents and students time to adjust slowly. It allows for a smoother transition as we place students into receiving schools, and it provides time to determine a revised elementary facility plan that's a little bit more thoughtful than to just moving all the students immediately into the other schools. The cons is that you're delaying cost savings. As you all know, costs are rising. You're going to be going into 2 negotiation sessions. You're also going to be dealing with transportation contracts coming up and other contracts coming up, and I can guarantee that there'll be percentage increases in all of that. I don't have anybody calling us telling us that what we're spending now is going to be less next year or the same. Everybody is raising prices. There's a prolonged uncertainty if we do the phase out, because it seems like it's a budget to budget for parents. Therefore, it's a drawn out closure, right? That causes ongoing stress for the community, for the students, for the staff, for the families, and it leads to dissatisfaction overall. The curriculum and instructional costs, as students transition, those costs are going to move with them, so that really it's cost neutral because we still have the same students. And then we do have parents right now that are opting to move their child already to the new elementary school. And as you can see, class sizes at Hope Valley continue to get smaller. So I asked Mr. Zenian to sort of review the impact, right? So a budget impact. Staffing, it really is, after all is said and done, we're looking at 1 staff reduction, but to be honest, with the retirements that are coming up, it'll be a neutral because you'll have those retirements, which will be through attrition. And I think as you noticed when they did the budget review that we've been able to maintain our staff and lose staff, but by attrition and not by having to do big layoffs like you've seen in Coventry, for example. Building maintenance and utility is where the savings are going to come from. Because if you're operating the building even half full, you still have to run the heat. You still have to run all of the things that you would normally run. It is important to know that right now we have minimal capital needs in Hope Valley's plan because it's being phased out. But we know that we have a septic that could go because it's old. And if it goes, it's about $175,000 cost to us. So we're rolling the dice with that, as we are rolling the dice with the roof, because while we're pushing it out, if something happens, you're looking at about a $1.4 million roofing as we continue. And just to remind you, if we have state dollars and we get reimbursed and we close Hope Valley, anything we use in Hope Valley has to be sent back to the state. They won't give us, we have to be 100% of that dollars ourselves.
For how long? Is there a ceiling on that?
Yeah. I want to say it's, don't quote me, I think it's 5 to 7 years, but I'll double check because they do adjust some of the legislation around that. Transportation, it's at minimum 1 bus, about $77,400 right now if nothing changes. And then overall, the total budget impact is about $381,506.11. And again, that's based on our current information. So things change, prices go up, prices come down. Students move in, students move out. So based on what we know at this point, that's really what it looks like. So overall, when you're looking at the enrollment projections, right now Ashway has 212. I'll send this. This is going to go on the website too, probably, so you'll have all this.
But I got it now.
No worries. The Ashway is 212. So if you close immediately, you would need to move based on the contractual requirements. You need to add a grade 3 and a grade 4 to Ashway. That does put art on a cart, and it it removes a specialist from a separate room and then pushes them into classrooms. The Charlestown is at 244. You would have to add pre-K, which is 4 classes. And again, we would have to update those spaces to ensure that they were pre-K ready based on the requirements of RIDE. And that would push Charlestown to about 350 students. Richmond is currently at 369. We would add 3 grades, a grade 2, a grade 3, and grade 4. And how this came up is that we looked at all the student addresses at Hope Valley and where, based on the new lines, they would go. In Hope Valley, obviously, with a closure, it would be with 0 students. So this is where, and again, a reminder that the certified staff, after all, if the closure is what the committee desires, that's a -1. And if it's a phase out, it would be the same thing. We would not have a grade 1. We would add 1 grade 1 to, we would have probably add a grade 1 to, I believe it was Richmond. And then you would keep 2nd, 3rd, and 4th and pre-K at Hope Valley for another year. So this is the only request I received regarding the conversation about Hope Valley. And if there's other information at the next meeting or things you want to continue to discuss, as you know, come January, we'll be in budget season. We're doing that now. We're already in budget season. Budget season really doesn't end for us. But overall, obviously, we're continuing to look for efficiencies in the district. I think many of you that have been here know the budget is lean. And while I know people continue to say it's 70% of a municipal budget, that's not atypical because we have over 500 staff members between ESP and certified, and this is a human business. So our investment is our educators and our support professionals.
Is there a timeline, say, okay, we're shutting it down? Like,
That's what you have to tell me.
you know, budget-wise, so say January, we're saying, okay, we shut Hope Valley School down for the 2026 season. If I got my year right.
Well, FY 26, you're right.
It will take this much off the budget. If we shut it down this summer.
So you don't want to be careful about saying taking this much. You know that it's going to be a minimum of 300, almost $400,000. But like I explained, you're also going to be in contract negotiations with 2 unions. You also have a science curriculum that you have to approve to be able to meet the state requirements. You also have increased enrollments around out-of-district placements. And the DCYF rate, as the trend is, continues to go up every January. It went 2 years ago from $55,000 to $95,000. So these costs, while you have a savings, it doesn't necessarily mean the budget will be negative. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, but we gotta look at it, that way too.
Yeah, so if you go back to this one,
We gotta look at
if you
both ways.
close it or phase it out, this is about approximately every year. And that's if nothing with the capital need happens.
So they're saying it costs $381,506 a year to run that school right now.
No.
No, that's
That's what
that would be
the
That's the
savings.
impact.
impact savings,
Right, because you still have, the students still exist.
right?
So
So if say you shut it down, what is the savings
That's right.
1,381,506
right now?
If we, at 26, like you said. Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. You good?
Yep.
Fred?
I just don't want anybody to lose focus on the fact of building maintenance. That is just as critical as the total budget impact. Especially until we get that information, but even 7 years is a long time. So I'm just saying, if we have to invest.
Might not get it back.
Laura?
So I apologize. I thought that that at this meeting, we were going to be presented with basically two different buckets. There was going to be the cost if the school shut down, and then the cost to keep it in this sort of phase out type thing. My interest would be in what the monthly burden is to the district to keep the school open as it sits now.
So this is the yearly burden, as it states right now. So either way, whether we're closing or phasing out, approximately with no additional capital needs and maintenance, this is what it is.
Okay. So if that's divvied up over the course of the 12 months, that you're saying that that's essentially what the monthly cost
That's
is
the
for
lights, that's that's everything. Oil, water.
Food, electricity, the whole.
So every month that this issue is being debated, we can kind of tally that up.
Right, we have it, so every month when you get the bills, you'll see, it's electric, well, all of that's in there. And then what Greg did was he pulled it and did it, what it would cost us for the entire 180 days.
Thank you.
Right now, based on the current prices.
So I know that this continues to be on the agenda, and seeing as this could likely be my last meeting, I will just say that, I appreciate the fact that we keep bringing it to the forefront so that parents understand it's a continuing conversation. I think it was really difficult for parents when we said last year, okay, we're phasing it out and this is what's coming at you. To me, it's largely a budgetary concern, but we need to be cognizant of the fact that there are a lot of families at Hope Valley who are impacted by this. So I would not be an advocate for a faster phase out because I feel like we started this conversation by saying we were going to close the school one grade at a time. And I think to really speed up that timeline, while there is absolutely a budgetary savings, and I recognize that, I think that that is burdensome to families to say, oh, nope, now we're speeding up the process because of budgetary concerns. The flip side of that is when the budget is created, if we create it with phasing out Hope Valley one grade at a time, the town of Hopkinton should be cognizant of the fact that we're phasing it out one grade at a time and there's a budgetary impact. So the two things go hand in hand. It's hard when Hopkinton defeats a budget when we're trying hard to phase out a school building. So I guess my 2 cents is I'm not in favor of speeding up this timeline. I think it's not how we started the discussion. So hopefully we can find other ways within the budget to offset the cost of phasing it out one grade at a time, which is how we kind of what we presented to parents at the beginning. Jess?
I think we also, in addition to that, we also have to be aware of the other schools. Adding 100 kids to Richmond, which is already the biggest school by far, is a tough pill for me to swallow as a Richmond parent and resident. One of the things I liked about the bond for new school construction is that we would have 3 new schools that were roughly the same size. Now we're looking at one school that's very small, one school that's in the middle, and one school that's very big. So not only do we have to worry about the parents and families that are at Hope Valley that are impacted, it impacts everyone in every town.
Yeah, absolutely. Catherine?
Gina, historically, do you know, like, how full was Richmond Elementary in the past? Because I've, heard it said a lot that, we have 1,000 less students in the school
Right.
system altogether
Richmond-
now.
At the height of its day, I want to say I was over 550,
And so now you're talking about,
474.
yeah, and.
But to be, again, I understand what Jess is saying, because I battle with this too, because we know there's a cost savings, we know that we're under enrolled, and to your point, we have one building that's very small and 2 buildings that are larger that are going to take the majority of students in aging facilities. So we still have an elementary facility, we're still out of compliance with RIDE, the elementary facility plan. Now, that doesn't mean that new schools are off the table. It does mean that we want to look at, when we get the new report, are you going back to that 1? Are you going back to 2? Are you looking at 3? Is it, because major renovations are going to be necessary regardless of the plan, because your schools are aged.
Karen?
Sorry, do we know when we're gonna get that building report?
I know that they've completed all their site visits here. Mario Carino from RIDE explained to me that they would do the best that they can to get it to us. I have not had a timeline on that.
Okay.
But it's in my updates, it says exactly that.
Thank you.
No update yet.
So as far as the layout of Hope Valley Elementary, is there I would assume that there's already been a walkthrough where it was determined that this is the easiest area for the remaining classes to be. Is there a way that, I know that the heating system in there, I mean, that's obviously a huge cost, all those other things. Is there a way to kind of segment any of that?
No, because then you had pipes that freeze, you'd have to still run the heat.
Freeze at 30 degrees, so you would keep it at above freezing, but not.
Right, but it's not like your house, you know, the zones, it's an old building you're talking about. There's no HVAC in the rooms, you don't have, so that's our only building that had to keep the HEPA filters because of the air quality. It's an old facility that has no HVAC area of need. There's just a lot that has to happen.
So what you're saying is that there is no way to actually do zones within that school? So you
'Cause the
either
majority
heat
of the kids
you heat
are-
the whole building or you don't? Is
Right,
that what you mean?
right.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments on this agenda item?
For the update.
And we'll post this online as well, so that it's public. Next item is item E, budget transfers. I am recommending approval of the transfers for October 22nd, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Are there questions on the budget transfers? No? Those in favor? That is unanimous, thank you.
The last item is the budget update. As we continue to request, that gives you a review of where we are in the budget. Any questions from Mr. Zenni at his first meeting?
Come on, everybody.
Okay. Taking these and Greg so far?
Just, as Greg is doing a fabulous job on day 2. I just want to remind you, if you have questions about things like the bills, just give me a call so that we can give Greg some prep time while he's getting his feet wet. So we're happy to answer the questions. It's just, I know like Laura had reached out regarding the UCOA codes. Unfortunately, the report you get and pulling your COA codes, it would just be like a stream of information. But I do think the dashboards may help.
Yeah, the only problem with the dashboards is it's all in arrears, so it's hard to
In the moment.
right, decipher it. So that's the only request that I was looking at.
Okay, you're up. Consent.
Anybody have anything to pull from the consent agenda? Oh,
Wow.
my goodness.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I make a motion to accept all of the consent agenda items. But before I finish the motion,
Yes.
I would like to acknowledge donations. 1, donation from Gotham Greens of Providence, Rhode Island of 288 seedlings of hydroponics at Richmond Elementary School for a total donation value of $864. 2, donation from Viking Supply, Westlake, Rhode Island of 1 utility sink valued at $175 for the Richmond Elementary School greenhouse. And 3, donation from Derek Glukaski Racing Team Classroom Supplies to Mrs. McGlinsley, grade 4 at Richmond Elementary School.
Second.
Those in favor of the consent agenda? That's unanimous, thank you.
Okay, so our subcommittee reports, Health and Wellness met on October 8th and closed out their draft minutes of the meeting. The Policy Subcommittee also met on September 17th and then closed out their draft minutes. And for my report, as I mentioned, the Bureau Veritas North American update was that they've completed the site visits, and once we get an inkling of when we will get that report, I will update the committee. Our administration transition has concluded. Mr. Zenni has now taken over as Director of Administration and Finance and has completed day 2. Mr. Gencarelli is now at the middle school. He started over there on Friday. Mr. Scanapiego started over at Hope Valley on Thursday, and Ms. Leclerc started at the new principal as Ashway the day after Columbus Day. And we did do a transition where Ms. Leclerc and Mr. Scanapiego spent 2 days together. And then Mr. Scanapiego and Mr. Gencarelli spent the day together. And then Mr. Gencarelli, Mr. Zennian, and Ms. Florence spent Friday together. And then this way, everybody had an opportunity to greet and meet students together. And then just some highlights for the coming events. If you're looking for a great dinner on Friday, the chicken palm dinner is never, ever something you want to miss. So that's at our CTC Culinary Cafe from 4 to 8. That's a great one. And then you can see all of the other wonderful Halloween events, the Pumpkin Glow at Charlestown, CMS Challenge Show is coming up. So lots of fun events as well as informative around our school improvement team meetings and PTO meetings.
Okay, requests for future agenda items, just as a reminder, if you could please, say them now, but then also send an email to me and Superintendent Picard and Ms. Brazel as well. Yes.
Yes, I had two. So one was, regarding a policy, to discuss that. I suppose we would do that at the policy subcommittee first.
Which policy?
What we had talked about earlier, transportation. Yeah, that one. And
So
then,
we actually did that, that's the policy we did.
no, specific to what we discussed in, a particular meeting tonight in executive session.
Okay, so just, you want it to come back, you want that policy, instead of coming to the school committee, to go back to policy.
Right, in that just that particular aspect, because we generally do that with policies anyways, the subcommittee
But
first.
you had actually authorized me to put it in front of the school committee, so they were
Right.
gonna get it next month. So I'll
Yeah.
put it back into policy.
Yes. Yep.
I
And
know
then also there
minutes
was no,
reflected that we put it forward, but that's okay.
I mean, we can do it that way. I mean, I just thought just to keep it uniform. I know Don has mentioned that before to me when I wanted a policy.
I just want to be
review.
clear only because the policy subcommittee asked me to put it forward.
Sure,
So I'm not sure.
yeah.
Yeah, that one's up.
Okay,
Can I,
well,
can
we're
I
gonna-
ask a
we're gonna
question
think
in
on that
reference to that?
Sure.
No, I agree it should be addressed, but then whatever policy we could also impact by budget reduction. So which rules?
I don't know because she wanted to bring it. So I can bring it back to policy. The only thing is, I gotta ask John, because the policy subcommittee asked it to go forward. So my wondering is, could we just bring it in front of the full school committee and have at it together?
I mean, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Okay, all right. And the other thing was, the survey works, to discuss, soliciting that specific feedback.
And I'll send you the link. It's already online.
Okay.
All the results are online, so you can take a look. It actually is, students are surveyed, teachers are surveyed. So you can review to see if the questions that you have would be answered. And then, I can have Dr. Camilla, at our next meeting as part of the FYI, put in some of the responses that we get from our professional development days.
Okay, so, you said if it wasn't what I wanted, then I would put it on the next agenda.
So why don't you,
So,
Well, that
look at it
you would
first.
request it on an
Right,
agenda.
so
Yeah,
look
not
at
necessarily
it
the next
first.
agenda, because you want to see it. the information
Okay,
first.
all right.
anybody else? Oh, Holly.
That's being silly. Can we put on the next agenda for the Hopkinton Town Council 1904 building plan for outside?
You guys already did that.
Yeah, I thought that was what you mean.
And Laura.
So I wanted to, I don't know if this is the appropriate way to do this, but the RICAS scores that were recently released, I do think that, I've been approached by, several people about them. And I don't know how, I feel like as a school committee, part of our job should be to, I know that with the SIT team, that's part of the direction that RIDE has given them. But I feel like maybe there needs to be more of a holistic approach to this, to, to addressing the test scores and the RICAS scores and how that's impacting things, because with all that stuff being public, posted publicly, it does create a lot of questions, and people really would like to know the answers to a lot of the stuff.
Yep,
So
the school committee sees that every year. So last year, it came out, if you remember, it came out after the elections. And so, so this year, it was released on Friday. So Dr. Camilla typically presents the broadcast data, and then Ms. Spas and Ms. Brennan will report out on the SATs, PSATs, because those are both our state accountability. So that presentation happens every year.
So I guess what my question is then, what is our role in any of that? Because if there's, is somebody looking at the kind of the long-term, impact that's happening in our schools, that's looking at like the math scores, for example? I mean, I know that schools all over the state are seeing similar things from after COVID, but the time frame that a district is given to improve these scores or to come up with some sort of idea on how to address these issues and get our kids to where they need to be, I think that that should kind of be paramount over, you know, anything that we do, I would think.
Well, and actually, it is probably one of the largest things you do is teaching and learning. And while, you know, there's typically a lot of back and forth around the budget, the budget is designed to ensure that we're focusing on student learning outcomes. The district strategic plan is what the school committee approves, and then that's our charge from all of you. We finalized that. There were over 67 members that were listed, students, teachers, parents, community members. The school improvement plan comes from the district strategic plan based on specific needs of students, and then individually teachers in their caseload. So Dr. Camella will talk through that larger picture, but I think everything that we do, we should ask ourselves, how are we providing the support for the schools to be able to improve and increase? It's just like my goals. They're designed to be able to meet the needs in areas where there's gaps. We know that a large area of gap is chronic absenteeism. Students can't learn when they're not in school. And what we saw is that students that had at least 2 days out a month performed not as good as their peers who were proficient. So while we heard someone talk about the scores, and I think what we're forgetting is you're looking at proficiency, but there's also students who are approaching. Approaching means you've almost met the standard. So to say that they're not included in a way that they're there, and if you look at our track record, you'll see, and Dr. Cole will talk about this, that while we're growing our students from elementary through middle to high, you're seeing that when they're graduating, they're at a very higher level. So what we're doing, the middle school group in every single category. I know people, you know, but our students are different every year, and they're comparing apples to oranges. So we'll talk more about that at the next meeting.
But do you create a subcommittee is what I'm asking, I guess. There's no like specific group that kind of, that looks at
Nope,
it.
the school committee oversees everything, and then the school improvement teams oversee their school improvement plans.
Okay,
And then the district strategic plan is your purview.
okay, thank you.
I think maybe what might help to address Laura's question or request is that when we go through the RICAS scores, maybe you could highlight some of the things that you are doing that will address, would that be helpful?
Right, because I know that the
will
teachers
address-
within the district,
Right.
they work, like, the teachers in our district are amazing. And, you know, I just, it's really, I think it's really difficult because when you have firsthand experience with how amazing the teachers in this school are, and then the data that's being released is not necessarily lining up to that. It's, you know, to me, I'm looking at that and I'm saying, how can that be, like, how's that even possible type?
Yeah, actually, I think it was Karen that asked that the committee see some of the questions. So we'll have, Dr. Camilla will share some of what an 8th grade math question looks like, 4th grade, and the kind of rigor in the state assessments is really high, which is great. And now that our students, so for example, right now, this year will be the first year that our grade 3 students have had the entire curriculum.
Yeah, since kindergarten.
So this 3rd grade cohort actually,
Different reading.
yep, they have had both math and reading, where our grade 3 students did really well overall, but they've had the new curriculum. So we're seeing the progress happening in our students that are part of the newer curriculum.
So I think what we'll do is that'll be an agenda.
Right, that's
item where
November.
when they present it. And then at that point, you can ask questions about, all right, what are action steps to help make them better?
And
Okay.
Dr. Camilla will have that listed as well.
So that's something that's addressed at a future meeting already?
So typically it's right after their review.
Oh, okay.
So it was released on Friday, so that we'll do November. Last year we did it in December because it was released mid-November.
Gotcha.
It's usually November, between October to December. This is the earliest we've ever gotten them, which is great. But
Oh, okay.
by the way, the student scores said they were done in August, so I'm not sure why.
So frustrating.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yes, Karen.
I just want to share that anybody can go to the RIDE website and put in RICAS and look for the released items, and you can look at released items on every test, grades 3 through 8. And they're
Yeah, I have.
pretty insightful.
I've gone back to
Any
2006.
other agenda items? Nope. All right. seeing
Madam
there's
Chair?
none, Yes.
Make a motion to adjourn.
This paper.
Those in favor?
Second.
Second.
Right.
Yay.